Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. Sharon Skembry, and I'm here today to talk about marketing. Actually, specifically, we're going to talk about marketing in the 21st century. So let's share the screen here and get going. The series of recordings that I will provide for you in the coming weeks will be based on the Hunt, Mello and Dietz text, which is in its third edition and published by McGraw-Hill. And part of the reason why I've chosen this text is because the way it's structured. The first three chapters make up the first part, the first of four parts, which is all about marketing in the 21st century. The next few chapters make up part two, which is focused on understanding the customer. And then part three is about reaching the customer, communicating with the customer. And part four is about responding to the customer. So let's begin with the basics and let's get going. Okay, so we have to ask the question of what is marketing? And some might falsely assume that marketing is advertising and sales, but that's a very narrow way to understand what is marketing. Marketing is so much more than that. Similarly, in this digital age that we find ourselves living in, some might assume that marketing is all about the internet. Marketing is all about social media marketing. Well, again, that's a very narrow way to understand marketing. And part of my goal is to demonstrate to you, the listener, the viewer, that marketing is so much more than that. Okay, so what is it then? All right, well, marketing is about the design of products for the benefit of consumer everyday lives, and things like the refrigerator and the washing machine introduce consumer convenience, and we purchase these appliances and devices to make our lives easier. We consume these devices and appliances in our everyday lives. We are exposed to communications about such devices and appliances every day. And we might even say that we're bombarded. On the supply end, we are provided services such as pizza delivery or handyman services. And this too is part of what marketing is. Fashion, market trends, market dynamics, all of this makes up this thing called marketing. And it's part of why marketing is kind of an exciting career path. All right, so here we are with the learning objectives for today's session. At the end of today, you want to be able to describe what's the marketer's role in creating, communicating, and delivering value. We want to differentiate amongst the various eras in the history and the development of this concept called marketing. We want to distinguish between consumer needs and consumer wants. We want to understand that there's various elements that we can use as tools in implementing and in designing and implementing the marketing mix for a particular product or service. We want to discuss the importance of globalization in the field of marketing, explain the role of analytics in marketing, demonstrate the relationship between ethics and marketplace success. And we want to recognize that marketing is useful not only for for-profit firms, but also not-for-profit organizations, community services, government divisions, government services, public services, as well as other non-traditional business entities. And here, for example, we've got April Slayton, who's a communications director for the National Park Service. And she says that her approach is about honouring the park's primary mission for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. So her product is national parks. Her brand is team-oriented. Her advice is take every learning opportunity that comes your way. And she understands that she has to talk to multiple audiences in the messages that she creates, in the marketing communications that she creates. She has to be able to talk to the visitors to the national parks. She has to be able to talk to the government regulation entities and bodies that have some sort of authority over the national park services, but also other community organisations and services that are relevant to national parks. So yeah, she's got multiple stakeholders. Okay, so each of us, when we are putting this thing called marketing to work, we need to recognise who are the stakeholders. Customers are one of our stakeholders, but just one, and not the only one that we need to be aware of and cognizant of. But let's start with the customer in the first instance, right? Okay. So marketing is an organisational function that consists of three components. Create the value, and that is customer value, benefits for the customer. Communicate that value. For example, new restaurant opens near the college campus and they might use online ads to communicate about how convenient is the location, how healthy is the menu, and what specials they have for the specific audience of the local students. So after we create value and then communicate the value, of course, we have to deliver the value, and that means getting organised in terms of making sure that our ingredients are arriving on time and in good condition. And then, you know, maybe we have a delivery system where to make sure that we get the product out to the customer at the right time, in the right shape, at the right price, so that we are highly efficient and effective in the value that we are delivering. So this is an important point. Marketing creates value, and Apple as a product is premium priced on purpose. They have a premium product. It's delivered in a premium manner, and therefore they can command this premium price. Why? Because of the value that they've created with their customers. Now, UPS is an example of an effective supply chain, and this is the value and the competitive advantage that they bring to the marketplace. Okay, so what have we learned so far? Marketing is about creating value, communicating value, and delivering value for the customer. So what is marketing? It's customer-centric. It's focused on the customer as central, but it hasn't always been like that. For example, prior to the 1920s, there was a very heavy emphasis on production. The philosophy was that if we produce quality products, then those products are going to sell themselves. And of course, you know, this philosophy grew up because of the Industrial Revolution that hit or arrived in the mid-1800s, right? So that second half of the 1800s was all about produce, 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 because now we've got this engine technology. We have the technology, so let's build whatever we can. Let's build a quality product. And the thinking at the time was that, okay, these products are going to sell because they're good. Yeah, okay, so that worked for that time, but we moved on from there because the 1930s arrived, where the, you know, very low resourced era, and so it was all about the production orientation kind of fell off in a little bit in terms of where the emphasis was, because resources just weren't available so much. And from the 1930s, we had World War I on the prior side of that and World War II on the other side of that. And so, in World War II, it was the growth in production outpaced consumer demand. And so they needed to sell what they had produced, they being the manufacturers, right? So they had more supply than demand. And so the emphasis shifted from production to sales. The Ford T model was launched in 1910. And if you look at what automobile manufacturing was prior to that point, every vehicle was custom made to the customer's specifications. It was very expensive. Each of them was a one-off. They were custom made. Henry Ford came along and designed a production process that was far more efficient. And that's why he's known as the father of the assembly line. He lined everybody up and he said, right, you put the tires on, you put the doors on, you put the steering wheel in, you put the engine in, and you paint it. Okay, so we had this production assembly line happening, and this enabled highly efficient production. So that was in 1910 when that T model arrived and changed the world forever. And so automobiles hit the road because they were now mass produced and therefore more affordable for the mainstream consumer. This meant that road infrastructure had to grow up around this demand for automobiles. And similarly, road safety became an issue. Things like traffic lights were installed. Road rules evolved, and now here we are today. All right, so from the production era to the sales era, we ended up in the marketing era. And this era evolved from the golden age of advertising that was quite apparent in the 1950s. And the Mad Men series, if any of you watched that, I've given you a hyperlink there to the Mad Men series where you can watch the trailer. This gives you an insight on what that world was like, fictional and maybe exaggerated for theatrical purposes, but the essence of it was that they began to understand the customer. The customer orientation went from low to increased. And this is where we saw, or we see, Walmart growing up, where employees in every department are expected to meet customer needs. So sales assistants in the department stores, for example, asking customers, what can I help you with today? So this marketing concept continues to evolve, and especially with the technological innovations that are arriving thick and fast. And so in the 1980s, this is where we recognize the information age came to be, and the technology from the 1980s enabled marketing to shift from a transaction orientation to a relationship orientation. So in other words, technology enabled marketers to keep large amounts of data, large databases on who their customers were, what their customers want, when they buy, what their preferences are, when are they next likely to buy, and this is the last time we communicated with them, and this is what that topic of conversation was. So relationship marketing arrived post 1980. So if you are an Amazon customer, for example, Amazon uses technology and large amounts of data to develop relationships with customers. But Amazon is not the only organization that is expert at using technology to build relationships with customers. The technology is widely available even to a small business and a solo entrepreneur, right? So use the tools that are available to you to develop your relationships with customers. So if that's what the history of marketing, then what is the future of marketing? Well, as we've just flagged, technology is changing what and how we do marketing, because technology is changing what and how we consume as consumers as well. We see these changes, especially in media consumption. So newspaper subscriptions are down, cable subscriptions are down, social media adoption is increased, and streaming services are increased. We see that translated here to a graphic about consumer behavior, and this is taken from a Deloitte report recently released, and it's about digital media trends. So this report from Deloitte is suggesting that 84% of the people that they surveyed are using social media. 82% are subscribing to a paid streaming service. 78% are frequent or occasional gamers, whereas only 67% have a paid TV subscription. And the list goes on. So we are seeing consumer behavior changes with regards to the technology that is evolving. So social media as a path to news. This evidence from Pew Research Center, published in 2017, shows that Facebook, fortunately or unfortunately, Facebook is leading the way with regards to news consumption. Now, that the point here needs to be on the emphasis, needs to emphasize that Facebook is not necessarily doing the best job with regards to ensuring accuracy in the news items that are being posted and shared on Facebook. And we see this playing out with regards to the disinformation campaign that is very apparent in our community and our everyday lives at the moment. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about consumer needs versus consumer wants. So value is created when consumer needs and wants are satisfied. What's the difference though? Well, needs, we need water, we need air, right? Anything above and beyond that is basically a want. We want to have, we maybe need shelter, we need a roof over our heads, but our wants are maybe for the luxury home. Similarly, we need water, but maybe we want the bottle of Topo Chico sparkling mineral water, right? So what we need and what we want as consumers are two different things. We need food, but maybe we want to visit a specific restaurant. So distinguishing needs and wants is not always black and white though. Tobacco being a point to note, because tobacco, you know, it's one of the few products that if you use as directed, it will kill you. Tobacco manufacturers in certain countries are required to include labeling to ensure that consumers are informed that this is a fatalistic product that they are choosing to consume. But tobacco is also an addictive product. So we might need our tobacco fix. Maybe the brand that we want is we are particular about the brand that we want. Maybe our preference is vaping rather than the tailor-made cigarettes, as in this graphic. So there's ethical considerations for the marketer with regards to consumer needs and wants. Evaluating customer needs and wants must be done through an ethical lens to avoid potential problems for the firm, but also the broader society. Unfortunately, the tobacco manufacturers are still getting on board with that. Okay, so as marketers, ideally what we want to do is satisfy consumer needs and wants. But again, we have to distinguish between these needs and wants, right? Consumers might need transportation, but they want, the luxury vehicle. And so marketers have the opportunity to understand these consumer needs and wants and to satisfy these consumer needs and wants. We do emphasize, however, that because marketing is such a powerful tool, marketers have a social responsibility to the community and to the broader environment. Okay, so what's this thing called the marketing mix? Well, the way that the marketing mix is traditionally pitched is the 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps are product, price, place, and promotion. And I am going to explain these 4 Ps as well, but let me tell you that the 4 Ps are dead because the 4 Ps arrived in about the 1960s, and guess what? We've moved on since then. So let me explain the 4 Ps as a basic concept, and then I'll add my advanced version on that. Okay, so the 4 Ps, beginning with P for product. The product may comprise tangible and intangible characteristics. For example, an automobile, right? So the automobile, the vehicle itself is a tangible aspect of that product. But most vehicles are sold with a warranty, for example, and that is an intangible aspect of this same product. Products may also comprise a service augmentation, an additional service component. And that is the case with many vehicle purchases, automobile products, right? So when you buy a new car, for example, sometimes you will also be purchasing a maintenance schedule with that. So that's an example of a service augmentation strategy for an automobile product. Price relates to the value consumers place on the product. So price is not just about money. Price is about the time and the energy that it takes to purchase and consume whatever product. And so the price element of the marketing mix is flagged as the easiest to change. And of course, the price setup affects the revenue for whatever product or service that you are selling to the customers. Technology and online innovations have enabled us as consumers to be quite adept at comparing prices online. And so we might do some research online and then go to the store to purchase. But technology is informing the consumer far more than was the case previously. P for place. Place is important for marketers in the marketing mix because this is about how firms distribute products and where customers can buy and consume whatever products. So place in the traditional marketing mix relates to locations as well as transportation and distribution. P for promotion, for the fourth P, is about advertising and sales and public relations, and now also social media. Right, so we have these four Ps, you see, and there's various decisions that are related for the marketer with regards to each of these Ps. But let's just flag that P for product is kind of overly simplistic, because what's really important with regards to product decisions is branding decisions. So instead of just focusing on product, let's think about product and brand strategy. With regards to price decisions, absolutely an important element of the marketing mix, but so is sales. So instead of just pricing decisions, let's consider pricing and sales strategy. With regards to promotion decisions, promotions is a very narrow way to understand that element of the marketing mix. We have got a lot more to consider with regards to integrated marketing communications and digital marketing. So that's a very big area. And considering it just as promotion, I think, doesn't help us to be the most effective marketers that we can be. With regards to place, I prefer to consider place as distribution and logistics. Okay, now let's flag the trends, some of the trends that are affecting this thing called marketing. Well, there's the globalization trend, and more than in any time in history, businesses have the ability to go global, and partly because of internet technology and internet innovations. So the internet has enabled an interconnected world, and definitely connectivity is the new currency for business and marketers alike. Part of the evolution of globalization to what we see it as today is free trade agreements across certain regions in the world. For example, the North American Free Trade Agreement, otherwise known as NAFTA, which was revised as the USMCA, so US, Mexico, Canada Agreement. And this is about the Americas. This is about Latin America, North America, and Canada. Well, Canada is part of North America, but, you know, North and South America working together as a free trade bloc. And across Asia Pacific, we have the APEC agreement, for example, and others around the world, right? So these free trade agreements, these regional blocs working together is part of what has really increased this globalization trend. So Coca-Cola puts their marketing mix together. You know, they've got their classic Coke product, but the classic Coke product has evolved to include a range of products that not only include Coke, but many iterations of what Coke is. Traditional Coke, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, Vanilla Coke, and the list goes on of all the different Cokes that are available from the brand Coca-Cola. But Coke understands that one of the market trends that they need to accommodate in being astute marketers who are customer-centric is that not all of their customers want a cola product. So now Coca-Cola includes water, bottled water products, for example, and other, you know, orange beverages, for example. So they have their brand and they have their cola products, but their brand portfolio is broader than just cola, these days. Coca-Cola has done so well because their competitive advantage is not only the brand and the distinct packaging of that brand, but also their distribution strategy. They have taken to ensuring that their product is within an arm's reach, and they communicate this product being widely accessible through their integrated marketing communications. Another trend affecting marketing in the current marketplace is marketing analytics. So prior to the internet arrived in about 1994, and prior to that point, all marketing was only indirectly measurable. What Web 2.0 enabled marketing to do is measure performance. And for example, marketers could measure various communications that they put out there to see which commercial spots had the most viewers and sales, respective sales. So analytics can be used to communicate, to promote, to sell what the marketers have to offer. And this is excellent, but it does increase the pressure on marketing managers to be data-driven. Okay, you've already heard me with an emphasis on corporate social responsibility, and corporate social responsibility here is pitched as an effective and profitable business strategy. So ethical marketing should definitely be part of any marketing strategy. The American Marketing Association provides a code of ethics, and for those of you that are aspiring towards a career in marketing, I would suggest that you make yourself familiar with this code of ethics from the American Marketing Association, and you may also want to be a member of that marketing association. Good addition to your resume. We have seen unethical business practices that can destroy a company, like Enron, for example, and like Wells Fargo, for example. And I've given you a hyperlink to each of those stories. If you're not familiar with the Enron story, get familiar. Similarly with the Wells Fargo case, $3 billion settlement because of fraudulent cases, fraudulent customer accounts being established without the customers knowing. And yeah, that's the story, the brand story of Wells Fargo that they now have to overcome. They're in damage control. Enron is no longer. So we have this ethical decision-making framework that steps marketers through whether or not a practice is a good idea. So determine the facts and make sure that biases are considered in determining the facts. Identify what is the ethical issue at hand. Identify the stakeholders and consider their perspectives and how whatever decision you're looking at making will impact the identified stakeholders. Consider possible alternatives to the decision that's being considered. Consider how the decision will affect the stakeholders. Consult with your stakeholders and then make the decision, and then monitor the outcome of the decision. Now, remember, our primary stakeholder as marketers is our customers. They're not the only stakeholder, but let's begin with that. Understanding our customers are our primary stakeholders. All right. So marketing is just as good for non-profit organizations as it is for-profit organizations, right? So community services can put this marketing tools and practices to work for the purposes of improving community benefit. So we're talking about entities such as hospitals, universities, zoos, and even churches. Non-profit sector in America employs about 11 million people. And so marketing can actually help the non-profit organizations to improve membership and to improve funding. And this very point that marketing applies to more than just traditional businesses was published in the late 60s by Philip Kotler and Sidney Levy. Now, Philip Kotler is actually still around and still publishing. He has a very mainstream view on marketing, whereas Sidney Levy has passed away recently. I got to hear a keynote from Sidney Levy in 2015, and he has a different perspective, or had a different perspective than Philip Kotler, more of a non-functional view of marketing, more about symbolism and meaning than what Philip Kotler understood. So yeah, Kotler and Levy kind of went in different directions as their careers progressed, but both nonetheless understand that an organization such as St. Jude's Children's Hospital can strategically align with, for example, Kay Jewelers for the benefit of St. Jude's and for the benefit of Kay Jewelers. So here we see the strategic alliance manifested as K Cafe, and the related giving campaign for the K Cafe has raised over $70 million in donations since 1999. So here we see, you know, for-profit and not-for-profit strategically aligning for the greater benefit for the community. Okay, so this guy, he's a territory manager who works in Salt Lake City, and he is a professional who sells dental implants. He positions himself in that professional space as a thought leader and somebody who is continually learning. All right, so you too can effectively position yourself in the marketplace. And here's a place to start. What do you offer your employer, a prospective employer? What do you bring to the table? What aspect of you do you most want to highlight to somebody who might want to hire you? With regards to social media, let's put this to work by, in the first instance, choose 3 products that you currently use and analyze their social media presence, right? So pick up a product and then work backwards. How is this product being pitched online? What communications are being put out there related to this product? What social media platforms are they using? And, you know, make an assessment. All right, so that's the end of the first session today. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.